Well, right now I'm very excited to welcome a very special guest all the way from Washington, D.C., calling in. It is Congressman Scott Fitzgerald, representing Wisconsin's 5th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives. Just a little background. Prior to his election in Congress, Fitzgerald served in the Wisconsin State Senate, representing the 13th District from 1995 to 2021. He served the Wisconsin Senate as the Majority Leader, Minority Leader, Co-Chair of Joint Finance, and Chairman of the Senate Corrections Committee. Also, fun fact, and I didn't know this about you, Congressman, you joined the U.S. Army Reserve in 1981 and retired from service at the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. That's impressive. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Tracy. Yeah, I had a long career with the U.S. Army Reserves and was able to fully retire and kind of move into that next different phase on my 60th birthday, which was in November. So yeah, it was a very satisfying career.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, not only for your service in that regard, for all you do representing Wisconsin's 5th in Washington, D.C. Tell us a little bit about the mood right now. There's been just countless accounts of bills that have been pushed forward, things that have been passed, things that haven't been passed. What are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I would say overall, I think the House, if you look kind of across the aisle, all members are really concerned about kind of what's going on globally. It's kind of dominated the discussion in a number of the standing committees, but certainly, with what happened in Ukraine, followed by Israel now, and then always kind of this looming concern about China and Taiwan, it does have everybody kind of in a very serious mood, I think, when it comes to foreign affairs and just kind of where we're positioned on some of those. And then on top of that, I think certainly, I know it's been a little bit more of a political football, but the border and how to address what has become a full-blown crisis that has now been reported on for the last couple of years. And I think there's a lot of members of Congress, including myself, that have been to the border many times at this point and have seen firsthand how bad it is. And so there's a lot of concern about that as well.
Well, right now they're talking about not a combined border bill and a funding bill for Ukraine and other matters. They're breaking this apart, as I understand it. Do you think that we'll make some progress on this border bill, or do you think it's going to be kind of used as maybe a political issue as we move into election season?
No, I think our conference, I think the Republicans in the House are very serious about what we believe is the answer to it, which is H.R. 2, a bill that we've already passed, which would deal with 90% of all the issues that are going on at the border right now. And I would just underscore, I think for me, the most significant piece of this is the asylum claims. Mm-hmm. We know that the cartels are involved. The cartels have these individuals kind of ramped up, and not only when they come across the border, they know what to say and how to play that game. And they're actually seeking the border agents and Homeland Security officials when they arrive. And I saw that firsthand many times. So it's a greater concern, I think, as we see the numbers. We're over 8.5 million illegal crossings. There's over 1.8 million known gotaways. And we're starting to see the impact in our own state. I had a conversation with a school official last week about what's going on in the very southern part of my congressional seat in Whitewater, mm-hmm. where the district has just been inundated with an influx of new children on the first day of school. And the problem is that these children are showing up unable to speak a word of English. So just think about the kind of demands and the problems that is created. And then within the community of Whitewater, where, there's a huge pressure on municipal services. So, kind of what we're seeing in New York City and what we're seeing in the larger urban areas as as those that come across the border illegally end up in some of these cities. It's happening right here in Wisconsin as well now.
So, and it's just a matter of time before it will impact even more cities like Milwaukee or Madison or what have you. I want to move now to the big news, which was the vote to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Do you think there will be a renewed focus by the president to enforce the laws that are already on the books, or kind of to what we were talking about just before? Is this going to continue to be put on the backs of Congress to figure something new out?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, we don't take this decision lightly. It obviously included a lot of wrangling back and forth last week. This has been discussed for some time. I'm a member of the Judiciary Committee, so Secretary Mayorkas has been before the committee numerous times and has been, peppered with questions, including myself, who was able to ask in the last time he was before the committee. I just reiterated a question that had been asked by many members previously, which is, do we have operational control at the border? And once again, Mayorkas went through a number of different descriptions to say, yes, we do, but we were able to kind of nail them down, saying, well, there are certain sectors in which there's just no way of describing it in that fashion. So I think for a lot of us, the operational control question, which is the second article of the impeachment, really demonstrates that I think that this was a concerted effort to make sure that there was a reversal from the Trump policies. And as a result of that, we find ourselves in the position of having to impeach. And the questions on impeachment, the high crimes and misdemeanors question, I mean, there are a number of members, I think, that may have preferred to go directly after the president, but that's a whole other process that's going on. And I get it. I mean, I'm sure your listeners can get fatigued by, this discussion all the time and what happened in the last Congress. But I still think it was essential. And I think at the end of the day, it does raise the profile of what's going on at the border.
Yeah, and we certainly would prefer that the president enforce the rules that are already on the books. And I think that's where, I think a lot of people get lost in that discussion, because you do have a bill before you, or, a combination of bills before you that, have some drawbacks. They're not as good as what we have now. And if we just enforce the laws we have now, we would be in a much better place. So I really, really am hopeful that for all the residents and all the immigrants and all the migrants that people want to get here legally, that they can do so without putting a burden on the residents of the United States of America. Congressman Scott Fitzgerald, you spend a lot of time on cybersecurity and have introduced a cyber crime bill and a number of other bills. Can you talk about what's driving that, especially in light of the hearing that was a couple weeks ago with a number of the social media leaders, things like that? What's driving your action on there?
Really, it's as a result of one of my new committee assignments. I was moved from Education and Labor from the last Congress to the Financial Services Committee this Congress. And it's a good fit. There are a number of industries, including the banking community, insurance, certainly credit unions, and then Fiserv, right? Financial services and the technology associated with that industry that's really at the forefront. And Wisconsin seems to be kind of right at the crossroads of a lot of this stuff. So it was a good fit to be on the committee. And one of the things that I focused on and have many conversations about is something relatively new, and that's a new kind of basis for cybersecurity. So a lot of it has to do with combating kind of the money laundering that's happening in cybercrime. And also, right now the U.S. code needed to be updated so that it matched up with a lot of the kind of the emerging forms of criminal activity that's in and around some of the digital assets right now. So it's I called and worked with a couple of other members of financial services in a bipartisan fashion to really focus on this, and I think we have a pretty good bill. The Secret Service has the authority and the oversight on investigating a lot of these digital asset cases, and they did in excess of 500 seizures last year, and then a number of cases that probably not only are investigated not only by the U.S. but by some foreign governments. So there's an overlap there as well. But yeah, this is all kind of cutting edge stuff, and I think we're trying to give the House more authority to work within financial services to explore these things.
And Congressman, what's great about this is, it was done in a bipartisan fashion, and so many things actually get done in Washington, D.C. that we don't talk about, right? We always talk about the things that don't get done, but this is certainly something that, being bipartisan in nature, I think probably has a better likelihood of happening. I want to ask a final question about a special election last night. In New York for former Congressman George Santos's seat. It was flipped from Republican to Democrat, which shrinks the House majority even further. I think there's a majority right now of 6 seats. So with the election 9 months away, what do you think the main issue is for the voters in Wisconsin?
What we saw in New York last night is kind of unique because the entire state was redrawn before this last election cycle. So a lot of the districts had really changed significantly, and I don't think we knew how this was going to play out last night. I'm disappointed that we didn't get our candidate across the finish line. But I think in Wisconsin right now, I mean, I just did office hours in Brookfield on Thursday last week, and we had a good showing of constituents that were there, and we kind of left it wide open to what they wanted to talk about. And it was varied, but again, a lot of people very concerned about the border. And I think that's because people are getting kind of a steady diet, and they're very aware of it because it's just gotten worse and worse and worse over the last 3 years, to the point where people are becoming very concerned about it. And there's other issues out there. Certainly Israel is something that constituents are bringing up, concerns there. And like I said earlier, the Russian aggression and the war in Ukraine. So it's a mix of a lot of those national issues along with the border that seem to be on people's minds right now.
Well, and what was interesting about that border discussion, I heard this comment. I heard this comment earlier, particularly as it pertains to New York. This candidate was Democrat Tom Suozzi, who won in this special election to succeed George Santos. The Republican candidate, was actually pushing really the border and really running on the issue of the border. And this Democrat still won, which I think is interesting. But your point about the fact that the lines had already been redrawn, I think gives me a little bit more, more context for what really happened there.
Well, the converse was true too, in that, Suozzi talked a lot about the border as well. So, you had kind of an overlap where both candidates were talking about that issue. Politically, I know the Democrats understand that there's an issue there that they're going to have to work through. So there seems to have been a little bit more openness to that. But the U.S. Senate has kind of been on their own path with, obviously, this foreign aid package, which is going to be wholeheartedly rejected by the House. So it puts us back kind of to square one, and I go back to H.R. 2 and the bill that we passed. The answer right in front of us, along with President Biden actually utilizing some of these tools that are still available to him, to instead of reversing what President Trump did, I think he should be embracing them, and it would help at the border a lot right now.
Congressman Scott Fitzgerald from Wisconsin's 5th, thank you so much for your time today, and good luck, and thank you for all that you do in Washington, D.C.
Thanks, Tracy. It was great to be with you. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great day. It's 1:24. We'll be back with more after the break.
This is Libby Collins. Join me Sunday morning at 11.